Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're here to help you get instantly well-informed on key topics. Today, we're diving into a market that, well, it might sound a bit niche maybe, but it's absolutely fundamental. We're talking about the chemicals cylinder market.
Yeah, it sounds specific, but it underpins so much.
Exactly. And we're using insights from a really comprehensive report, the Global Chemical Cylinder Market Outlook 2033 from Cognitive Market Research. So our mission today is basically to unpack this, look at the market from 2021, see where it's heading by 2025, and then forecast all the way out to 2033. It should give us a real sense of some, hidden currents in the global economy.
It's fascinating, actually, because something like a chemical cylinder, seemingly simple, right? It acts as a kind of barometer for industrial growth.
Yeah.
These growth figures, they're not just numbers. They really tell a story about where manufacturing is booming and which regions are genuinely powering forward. It's surprisingly reflective of some pretty big economic trends.
Okay, so let's start with that big picture then, the global view. What kind of scale are we talking about here? What's the overall trajectory?
Globally, it's already huge. Back in 2021, it was valued at just over $313 billion. And looking forward, it's projected to hit around $366 billion by 2025.
Okay.
And the big jump expected to get close to $500 billion.
Oh.
We're talking over $499 billion by 2033.
Wow, $500 billion.
Yeah. And that translates to a pretty consistent compound annual growth rate, the CAGR, of almost 4%. 3.957% to be precise.
Nearly 4%. That's a solid, consistent expansion over a decade, isn't it? It really makes you think about the sort of foundational drivers behind that kind of steady growth, like you said, holds the building blocks for so many other sectors.
Exactly. It's not just more cylinders. It's more stuff being made that needs those chemicals.
Right.
And the really revealing part comes when you break that global number down by region. The overall growth is solid, but the pace, it varies quite a bit. Paints a really different picture depending on where you look.
Okay, so let's do that. Let's zoom in. Where is the real action happening? Which areas are leading this charge?
That would be Asia Pacific. Without a doubt, it's the global growth leader here. It's not just growing, it's really accelerating. We're seeing a strong 4.519% CGR there.
Okay, 4.5%, higher than the global average.
Significantly. So in 2021, it was just under $129 billion. By 2025, projected over $153 billion. And then the forecast for 2033, it balloons to an impressive $218.6 billion.
Wow, that's a massive slice of the global market.
It really is.
So within Asia Pacific, what stands out? Are there specific countries or maybe sub-regions driving that surge?
Absolutely. Several key players. China, of course, is a huge contributor. Its market grows from about $38.5 billion in 2021 to over $66.7 billion forecast for 2033.
Still massive.
Still massive. But, the really interesting story in terms of acceleration is India. It's a real standout. It boasts the highest CGR in the whole region, 5.492%.
Over 5%.
Yeah. Its market is set to nearly double, from just over $15 billion in 21 to over $29 billion by 33.
And what's driving that in India, do you think?
It points to those fundamental shifts, rapid industrialization, growing consumer demand for all sorts of products made with chemicals, government pushes for manufacturing, that kind of thing. And it's not just India. We see really robust growth in Southeast Asia, too, a strong 5.093% CAGR. That market's almost doubling as well. And even smaller economies like Singapore showing impressive expansion, around 4.775% CAGR.
Okay. What about, say, Japan or South Korea? More established, perhaps?
Good question. Still growing steadily.
Yeah.
Japan goes from about $22.8 billion to $36.1 billion. That's a 3.9% CAGR. South Korea, $10.2 billion to nearly $16 billion, a 3.8% CAGR. So solid growth, just not quite that explosive rate we see in India and Southeast Asia.
Makes sense. And Australia, Taiwan, rest of APAC.
Yep, all showing growth. Australia around 3.6%, Taiwan a bit higher at 4.1%, and the rest of APAC's categories also strong at about 4.4% CAGR. It's widespread growth across the region.
That really paints a clear picture of Asia Pacific's momentum. Okay, let's shift gears. North America, how does that more, let's say, mature market compare?
Yeah, North America is definitely more mature, but it's very steady. The overall CAGR there is 3.263%. It was already a big market in 2021, around $77 billion, expected to hit nearly $88 billion by 2025, and then grow to over $113 billion by 2033. So consistent upward trend, more about ongoing activity and maybe innovation rather than that rapid expansion phase.
Right. And within North America, the U.S. obviously dominates in size.
It does. The U.S. leads in value, moving from $65.5 billion up to over $95 billion by 2033. That's a 3.151% CAGR. Solid.
Okay.
But interestingly, Canada, while smaller, actually shows a higher growth rate. It's got a 4.22% CAGR.
Oh, interesting. Any thoughts on why?
Could be various factors, maybe specific industrial sectors expanding, resource development.
Yeah.
So it says some strong underlying dynamics there.
And Mexico.
Mexico's contributing to a healthy 3.457% CAGR, growing from about $5.5 billion to over $8.3 billion, likely tied into those North American supply chains.
Okay, interesting dynamic between the three. Now let's cross the Atlantic. Europe. What's the picture there? Similar stability. Any surprises?
Europe shows stable growth overall, pretty similar to North America in some ways. The CAGR is 3.504%. So market value was around $65.5 billion in 2021, projected to climb over $74.6 billion by 2025, and then expand to over $98 billion by 2033.
And within Europe, I imagine there's quite a bit of variation.
Oh, absolutely. That's where it gets really interesting. Germany, for instance, has the strongest CAGR in Europe, 4.228%.
Wow, higher than the regional average again.
Exactly. Shows its continued industrial powerhouse status, growing from $12.3 billion to nearly $20 billion.
Okay. Any interesting contrasts?
Yes. Look at Russia. Much more modest growth, a KGR of just 1.907%.
Oh, that's quite low compared to Germany or even the regional average.
It is, moving from about $3.3 billion to just over $4 billion by 2033. Suggests a significantly slower pace may be linked to, well, various economic or geopolitical factors impacting investment there.
Right, that makes sense. Any other standouts, high or low?
Well, you see solid growth in the UK, about 3.8%, France around 3%, Italy 3.1%, Spain 3.8%. Pretty consistent across the major economies. On the lower end, besides Russia, maybe Luxembourg, smallest market here, lowest CAGR at 1.2%. But overall, Europe is growing steadily, just with these internal variations.
Got it. Okay, let's head south now. South America. Often talked about as an emerging market zone. How does it look in this foundational sector?
South America is definitely showing that emerging market strength, a really notable CAGR of 4.273%.
Okay, wait, 4.273%. That's higher than North America and Europe.
It is. Quite telling, isn't it?
Right.
The market was just under $18 billion in 2021, rising to over $21 billion by 2025. And the forecast for 2033 is almost $30 billion, $29.5 billion specifically.
That is significant growth. What's driving that? Which countries are really moving?
We see some really strong momentum. Look at Argentina, a high CAGR of 4.749%.
Nearly 5%?
Yeah, growing from $3.5 billion to over $6.1 billion. In Brazil, the regional heavyweight in terms of value, is growing strongly too. From $6.4 billion to over $10.4 billion, that's a 4.1% CAGR. And others like Chile, Peru, Colombia, rest of South America, all showing KGRs between roughly 3.7% and 4.5%. And suggests, broader industrialization, maybe infrastructure development picking up across the continent.
Okay, very dynamic picture there. Next up, the Middle East, a region we know is focused on diversifying its economy. How's that reflected here?
It's reflected quite strongly, actually. The Middle East market shows notable expansion, growing at a very healthy 4.181% CAGR.
Okay.
It stood at just under $13 billion in 2021, projected to hit over $15 billion by 2025, and then reach over $21 billion by 2033.
So solid growth again, a good indicator of that diversification push, perhaps.
I think so. It points towards significant investment in industrial capacity beyond just oil and gas.
And who are the key players driving that expansion?
Well, the UAE actually leads with the highest TGR in the Middle East, 4.725%. Yeah, its market is projected to nearly double, from about $2.5 billion to almost $4.4 billion, really reflects that push into new industries. Saudi Arabia, on the other hand, has the highest absolute value, growing from just over $3 billion to over $5 billion, with a strong 4.27% CAGR, driven by those huge economic transformation plans noted.
Now there it is.
Turkey also shows significant growth, nearly 4.5% CAGR. Egypt around 3.7%, Qatar nearly 4%. So again, broad-based growth across key economies in the region.
Okay. Last region to cover, Africa. Often seen as having huge potential. What's the outlook for its chemicals cylinder market? Where's the strong performance?
Africa is showing consistent progress. It's expanding at a solid 3.559% CAGR overall. The market was around $11.3 billion by 2021, projected to reach over $13.8 billion by 2023. Now, the absolute numbers are smaller compared to, say, Asia, but that consistent growth rate is important.
It points to developing industrial bases, right? Any particular countries standing out within Africa?
Yes, definitely. South Africa showed particularly solid performance. Its market grows from $3.8 billion to over $6.6 billion by 2033. That's a strong 4.242% CAGR.
Higher than the regional average again.
It is. And Nigeria also rose significantly, from about $2.2 billion to over $3.7 billion, with a 3.745% CAGR. So these figures, they indicate, healthy industrial development in key African economies, maybe growing self-sufficiency in manufacturing, more demand for basic chemical inputs.
Okay, so we've gone around the globe, looked at all these numbers, these regional stories.
Yeah.
What's the big takeaway here? How do we kind of synthesize all this for you listening?
Well, I think what's really striking is that this market, the chemical cylinder market, despite seeming kind of basic or utilitarian, is showing really promising and, importantly, robust growth everywhere. Globally.
Right.
It really acts as a proxy for fundamental economic activity. And Asia-Pacific, it's clearly the powerhouse. Not just the biggest, but growing the fastest. That signals a real shift, doesn't it?
It does seem to underline that shift in global industrial weight.
Exactly. And then you look closer, and you see these key emerging markets, India, Southeast Asia, Argentina, the UAE, putting up really high key jars.
Yeah.
That's where a lot of the new growth is happening. So this consistent growth overall, it hints at broader development, investment in infrastructure, manufacturing expanding globally. It shows us, in a way, where the future activity is building up.
Absolutely. It's a great reminder that sometimes these less headline-grabbing industries hold really valuable clues about where the global economy is actually heading, a real barometer, as you said.
Precisely.
So just to quickly recap for everyone listening, we've taken a deep dive into the global chemicals cylinder market, seeing its substantial, steady growth overall. We've highlighted that powerhouse region, Asia-Pacific, and also zoomed in on some specific emerging economies that are really driving future industrial growth and broader economic shifts.
Which kind of leaves us with a final thought, doesn't it?
Go on.
Well, if a market like this, chemical cylinders, seemingly quite niche, quite foundational, if it can give us such clear signals about global economic trends, industrial shifts, even changes in global power, it makes you wonder what other, often overlooked, maybe even boring industries could be hiding critical insights about where the world is heading next. What else should we be looking at?
That is a great question to ponder, something for you all to think about. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the numbers that, well, literally help make the world turn. We hope you found it insightful.